Time for another look at the papers. Here with me reviewing them this morning are the UK editor of The Big Issue, Paul McNamee, and broadcaster and journalist Vidisha Mamata. So welcome back to you both. Paul, we're kicking off with your choice this hour and a double-page spread in The Express, reflecting some of the misery that people had trying to get around the country or out of the country over this weekend so far.
Yes, this is basically one big yelping moan from The Express, mostly about how difficult it is to get out of London because it's looking at Euston Station being shut for 4 days and then pressure on other stations. They've described it as the last train out of Saigon, as you can see there. It has described the travel as carnage, but the carnage involves arguing and pushing. So that doesn't really sound terribly like carnage. Also, that the delays down at Dover are being blamed on French border staff carrying out further checks. No mention of Brexit, of course, it's The Express. It does seem that some of the delays that we saw last week of hours, up to 12 hours for people trying to get on the boats at Dover, have been fixed, although they are now 60 to 90 minutes, and a warning that there will be 15 million cars on the roads of Britain today, which seems rather a lot. It's basically saying it's going to be busy. It's Easter and it will be busy.
Yes. Thank you for that. It will, and I think things have been exacerbated by various strikes, aren't they? If you're flying, and then there's engineering work on the railways, and But yes, it's a good warning to everybody. Maybe sit in the garden. That might be the answer. Vidisha, the Daily Mail has got a double-page spread, and this is on the news we had today of how many local heroes, if you like, are being invited to the coronation.
Yes, and this in fact follows on from what we were just talking about. When the populace is in turmoil, divert attention with a bit of royal gossip and pageantry and splendour. We're a month away from the King's coronation, and bit by bit the palace are leaking out enticing tidbits of information about who's invited. Now, there are only 2,000 guests, unlike the 8,000 that were present at the Queen's coronation in 1953. And King Charles III is making it very clear that although, of course, the monarchy is an ancient Western European medieval institution, his coronation will be all about charity leaders, not the great but the good, community leaders, people who've received his medal in honour of what they've done for the community. So there are wonderful examples of a young man who raised money for local vulnerable people in Blackburn during the pandemic, another raising money for the homeless, great feats of self-sacrifice, particularly during the last 3 years. He wants to bring in those sorts of individuals who would really feel a sense of the splendour and wonder, but who also might not feel naturally that they belong at Westminster Abbey. It's King Charles's way, however clumsy, however overtly charitable it might be. I think it's actually an incredibly good thing to use the power and the position that you do have, that you're really not going to relinquish, but at least open up the doors and send out a message to the billions of people who will be watching to say, my reign's going to be different. Yes, I have all of these things which are hereditary, but I want to acknowledge the people who helped in their local community. And I don't care if it makes me unfashionable. I don't care if you want to think it's a little bit cringe and over sincere. This is what I'm like. The new reign is going to be about community, society, and so forth.
And I love the fact they've got a picture here of Max Woozy, who is going, and he spent 3 years living in a tent, raised an extraordinary amount of money, I think it's 700,000 or something, for a local hospice. And I was reading about him this morning that he got one other ticket to take one other person. So his parents, he said, instead of being like grown-ups and discussing it, they went straight for rock, paper, scissors. I think his dad won. Anyway, I love that. He's one of the people going. Into The Guardian next, Paul, and again focusing on the King, but this was his statement on Thursday, I think it was, saying that he would support the research into the monarchy's links to slavery. So how is The Guardian pushing this story on today?
Well, yeah, just follow on from what Vidisha was saying about King Charles trying to present himself as something of a more modern, potentially reforming monarch. This is not surprising that it's in The Guardian, given that recently they talked about their own historic links to slavery and how that benefited them. This is urging Charles to look deeper into the royal family's links to slavery and 270 years in which the monarchy profited from that. And they have got one of the pieces of clear evidence they have already is a large sum of money presented to William of Orange, ironically. In 1689, £1,000 from Edward Colston benefits from slavery, and Edward Colston, obviously a very controversial figure given his history and where his money came from. And this is, as you say, as part of an independent palace review. The full review is due to be published in a few years, in 2026. So they are going to dig deep into where the money has come from and how they benefited. But I suppose it's what they do next with that. Where will the palace go? Will they make reparations? Will they encourage some kind of endowment fund? That isn't entirely clear, but there is a direction of travel now that is coming out of the palace, and Charles is backing it.
Yeah, and whether that all spreads to other institutions will be interesting as well, won't it? Let's move on. I'm going to leap ahead to talk about Easter bunnies, if that's all right, Radisha. This is in the Telegraph. And there's a serious message behind this, isn't there, about the worry about impulse buying of bunnies?
Yes, it is a serious message, and thank you, Anna, for highlighting that right up at the top, because like many people, I think I saw this headline, and it being around breakfast time, I immediately thought it was talking about chocolate bunnies, the edible kind that you can just buy and eat them head first. And this is not what that story is about. Various pet shops, including one chain called Jolly's, which I particularly like, are warning against impulse buys of actual bunnies, the fluffy kind, the kind with twitching noses that like to eat carrots. My full knowledge about rabbits is only from cartoons, so I don't know if they really do like eating carrots or not, but you're not supposed to buy them on impulse. They live for about 15 years, and they're strongly counselling people not to go kind of pandemic puppy. The next stage is the sort of post-pandemic bunny buying spree. Do not buy any bunnies. People are returning them, and the rates of people who are stepping forward to volunteer to readopt them are falling drastically.
Okay, if there's one message from this morning, it's don't buy bunnies. Just very briefly, we haven't got time to talk about it, Paul, but I want to show the picture of the Daily Mirror if we can. This was the 101st birthday present to Captain Bernard Gardner, back up in a hurricane for his birthday. Extraordinary stuff. Thanks both.